My New Job by Lamb on Fire, 2018. I recently got a job as an usher at a neighborhood movie theater. For those of you who don't know, an usher is basically just a nicer word for janitor. After a movie is done playing, we ushers go in and clean up the screen in preparation for the next movie. The work is easy, but a bit repetitive. Anyways, the theater I work at is in the dead center of a small strip mall that's been slowly losing business over the recent years. This may be due to the fact that it's on a kinda ghetto street with homeless people and crack and meth heads wandering the sidewalks. During the day, it's pretty tame. Only a few lurking weirdos hanging around outside of small businesses and alleyways. At night, however, the weirdos seem to appear in masses. That is the time this story takes place. I was working a 7-hour shift after school, from 4 to 11 p.m. There were about 3 ushers that were on that night, myself included. The shift was pretty laid back, since it was on a Monday night and hardly anyone goes to the movies during the early week. We did our usual routine of wiping off the seats and sweeping the aisles. Nothing special. As the hours ticked by, the theater would become increasingly quiet and eerie. I remember walking down the deserted main hallway of the theater and just feeling very alone. I had to close that night, so the other 2 ushers clocked out around 10:30. Now it was just me, the 2 managers, and maybe 2 people working concession. Keep in mind that the managers and the concession workers hardly ever walk the hallway in between all the different screens, so I'm really the only person back there. I was getting tired and was thankful I only had half an hour left in my shift. I went to the storage closet, grabbed the trash can and brooms, and went to clean the next screen. I started listening to some music as I cleaned, when suddenly I heard what sounded like clothes being ruffled around. I paused my music to listen more closely. Silence. I figured I must have been hearing things and got back to work. As I started sweeping the aisles, I saw something out the corner of my eye. I paused, looked over towards the big screen, and saw the curtains around the screen swaying softly. I figured the air conditioner must have kicked on and the curtains were being blown around a bit. But as I sat there listening, I realized I didn't hear the faint humming of the air conditioner, just silence like before. Then I heard it again, the sound of fabric rubbing against fabric. I spun my head around to look at the screen curtains once again, and in the dim theater light, I could see the curtains moving again, but not in a normal fashion. It appeared that they had been pulled back very slowly. I sat there and watched for a bit, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Then I saw a face began peeking out from behind the curtain. My blood went cold. Somebody was hiding behind the screen curtains. I looked away, set my broom down, and started heading towards the exit of the screen to go to the concessions and get a manager. While I was walking out of the screen, I could feel the person staring at my back as I left the screen. The second I was out of the screen, I set off in a full-blown sprint to tell the manager that there was some shady person lurking behind the screen curtains. When I got to my manager's office, I was completely out of breath and shivering with fear. Just as I began to try and tell my manager what I had seen, the emergency exit alarm started blaring. I nearly jumped out of my skin because of how jarring the sound was. My manager immediately looked at the security camera of the back alleyway that all the emergency exits opened up to, and that's when we saw a man sprint out of the theater, down the alley and leap over a fence into the darkness. Me and my manager along with security ran down to the screen I was in, and sure enough, the emergency exit door was wide open. Security went out and started searching for the man while my manager contacted the authorities. None of us know how the man had managed to sneak in and hide behind the screen. But when we checked behind the curtains, we found a filthy sleeping bag, some used up syringes, along with a bunch of handwritten notes with various times on them. That's when I realized that the times coincided with the times that the movies ended that night. Upon further inspection, we found that the times on the other paper pieces were an exact match to when the movies in that particular screen ended on previous nights. This man had been camping out in that screen, writing down the times that the ushers would come in to clean for at least 4 days. I can now only think about how this guy has been watching us work from behind the curtains without us ever knowing, and that is a terrifying thought.